It's something, that we continue to focus on. We're very much a hands-on human type of company. So with all the we talk about AI and with all the AI, and AI is here to stay, and we're definitely focusing on it like everyone else should be, because it's real and it's
Mhm.
impact every industry, not just healthcare across the board. We also focus on the human touch, and we're using, AI and technology to free up our people so they can have more real conversations, both with our radiologist and both with our clients.
Mhm.
And yeah, if I can have more people and free up our people to spend 90% of their time, talking and just being real, radiologist
Yeah.
or somebody's working at home and is plowing through 150 cases a day. They appreciate when somebody calls them up and says, how you feeling today and how you're
Mhm.
doing,
Mhm.
and can I help you and do you need anything, as opposed to just dealing with automation, entirely.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Joao Camargo, and my guest here today is Mony Weschler, who is the COO of DocPanel. Moni, thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited for this conversation, and welcome to the show.
My pleasure. So am I.
Why don't we start off, Moni, with you giving us a little bit more context about yourself, about the company, the problem you guys solve, and of course, your involvement at DocPanel.
Happy to do it. Yeah, after a long career, in on the academic side in healthcare at hospital systems for over 30 years, um, healthcare needed a little bit more help, and I wanted things to move a little bit, a little quicker. So I joined DocPanel about 5 years ago, over 5 years ago, because I kind of like the people and I like to take on healthcare. And healthcare needs additional innovation. And sometimes that innovation comes from outside of the industry. Um, what I've seen in my 30 plus years of healthcare experience in large academics and major hospital systems is that there's a trend to more kind of commercialize healthcare as opposed to really focus on the patient. We all talk about focusing on the patient, but that doesn't always come through. And a corporate view when there are people lives at the end isn't always the best for the patient. So
Mhm.
a focus on providing care, which is kind of different than anything else we do in this world, right? It's not a financial model. We're not working, to get people, money or making people richer. It's really, improving the quality of life
Mhm.
across the board. So, joining a company that, kind of focuses on the patient and delivers a better experience is kind of why I joined DocPanel. Now, the problem we're trying to solve is that um, imaging has become a major tool in diagnosing disease.
Mhm.
And, the modalities, which is really the equipment, like the CTs, the MRIs, the ultrasounds, are computerized, right? And they're getting better and faster. So
Mhm.
that means more images, more patients per hour. And it's kind of becoming a requirement to diagnose patients in almost every setting. On the other side, the radiologists who are reading those studies are becoming less and less. Many are aging out. The
Mm.
replenishment isn't there. So there's a challenge of making sure that you could kind of properly read all these images and not make errors. So DocPanel takes a different take on that. We do partner with the radiologist, and we really understand that they're the critical resource and we don't want to burn them out, and we really want to listen to them, and we want to give them an experience um, that they can actually enjoy and practice, their skill set,
Mhm.
and yet deliver, premium and the best type of results and reports, for the patients in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And that was what kind of attracted me to DocPanel. And we do that. We do at this point, we have over 150 clients across the US, ranging from, small sole providers all the way up to, over 26 academic medical centers that choose to
Mhm.
partner with us. And, some of the top and finest, fellowship trained radiologists that the country has choose to work with DocPanel because we actually do care about them and we provide them with a platform that lets them focus on reading the studies. We keep them in their specialty and their subspecialty,
Hmm.
and we actually do listen to them. So, you make the radiologist happy and you make the patient get their results in a timely manner.
Yeah, great. Thank you for giving that context as well. And I always like to see when companies are seeing the changes that are coming with technology and AI and all those things, and don't just sit back and watch and let the company go at the mercy of whatever is happening. It's like, oh, let's actually adapt. If this is happening, how can we actually counteract that balance to make sure that we can still keep providing the value that we know we can provide, which sounds exactly like what you guys are doing, which is pretty awesome. How did that change come about? Or not even the change, but how did the idea come about in the first place? I would love to understand. Because at a surface level, it seems pretty clear to me like, hey, this is going up. We need to make sure that the other side catches up. If it was just as simple as that, then you can let me know. But how are the thinking gears of the team internally that got that going in the first place, and then really attracted you to join everything and keep increasing the impact that you guys have for a lot of these health organizations?
Well, it came from a meeting of the two founders. One is our CEO, Nourish Matthias. Unfortunately, lost his father to a misdiagnosis. And he comes from a financial background. And, after doing that, he wanted to change healthcare, and that a lot of people do that from personal experience. They want to come in and make it better for others because they've had a tragedy in their lives. So he is instrumental in driving the vision of the company. And the other founder is Dr. Phil Templeton, who's a renowned, radiologist, has been in the field for a long time, has been chair and held every other type of position, um, has built a teleradiology company before and has sold it, and then just wanted to do something, very different. And, the rest of it is getting a group of people together with the same type of culture that's really designed, and everyone has, brings their experience, but it's more of it's not a job, it's a passion,
Hmm.
at some point, you really want to drive and do things, because as long as you always keep that patient in your mind, you're going to do things differently than if it's just a position, just a job.
Mm. Yeah. And how do you guys? I I I think culture is always a big word that I hear in a lot of conversations, and at a high level, everyone kind of gets what it is. But I would love to hear from your end internally. How do you view culture? How do you screen for certain things when you're either hiring someone, getting them to the team, or when you're sitting down at that table at a meeting like you just mentioned, making sure that everybody is aligned, given the culture, whatever that is for you guys?
I mean, you're right. I mean, culture is probably, you're right up there with, with innovation. It's like everyone throws that word around, right? You keep throwing
Yeah.
innovation. Everyone wants to be
Yeah.
innovative, but there's one thing to say it. There's another thing to live it and to practice it.
Hmm.
Um, a culture where people mesh and are always rowing in the same direction, and people actually understand, what we're trying to accomplish, is very different than saying, hey, it's a dictated, this is the dogma, this is the culture that we're going to have. No, people kind of fit in because they really like to work with each other, but everyone really understands the mission, and works together to achieve that goal. So no matter where or what role you're in the company, it's up to leadership to make sure that we project the vision of what we're
Hmm.
trying to do to everyone, no matter what you're doing. There's no insignificant role. There's no junior role, in the company that doesn't understand, the mission of what we're doing. And by keeping people not only excited and telling them, but actually making sure they understand what we're trying to accomplish, and they're seeing continuously what we're doing and are kept in the loop, drives a certain unity and a certain culture that many people
Hmm.
fail to achieve.
Yeah, and it's almost like, let me know if you agree with this. It's almost like the ownership that also gets input into the team at that sense, then allows them to see the company as an owner, as someone who really wants to drive that value forward and that impact, as opposed to just someone who is in that department and yes, get your job done, and we'll call you up later when the next job is up at, or the next task is up at hand. It really gives them that leadership role, even if it's as you said, the smaller roles internally, sorry, within the team, they still have that sense of ownership and something that they want to achieve together with the company.
Correct. I mean, it's also a lot of places talk about open door policy and access to leadership. Most places don't, because the C-suite is too busy or not caring enough to deal with everyone. But really letting anyone in the company pick up the phone and call you and ask questions, continuously and support them in that fashion.
Hmm.
That's kind of unique. It doesn't really happen in real life in a lot of places. Um, the other role is, we kind of flipped even our interview process, right? So generally, you kind of go up the chain and, you start with some kind of recruiter and then you keep going up and eventually maybe or maybe not, you get into the C-suite for most positions. You never even meet anyone in the C-suite. We flip it, all our radiologists, they meet with the C-suite first before they meet with it. There's no point to waste anyone's time. They
Hmm.
talk to the people who are running the company because if you don't like the people who are running the company and it doesn't work at that level, why even continue? Why have
Exactly.
it's like flip it a little bit. Plus, they really appreciate the attention and they walk away with a phone number and a connection. So if they do join the company and they have any issues along the line, they know who to call.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's very refreshing to hear because I've heard from a couple other entrepreneurs as well before. Just flipping that upside down is like we don't have to go from bottom to top, just go from top to bottom and everything kind of solves itself out. You help them faster, you help the company faster, you give each other more value, you understand each other more, even better in any case. So like it's a win-win for everybody. So don't waste the time doing the the usual route that every company does. So that's pretty awesome to hear there. And I would love to just shift the conversation here, Moni, into DocPanel itself and the company and the growth that I'm sure you guys still are looking forward to achieve and are working on. Something that I always love to highlight in this show is that even though from the outside looking in, business can look like sunshines and rainbows, we all know it's not. There's so many challenges along the way. So if you're open with sharing some of those challenges when you're looking at the growth of the company and what you guys are trying to achieve, you of course relate some of them of about radiologists not being infinite, right? So that sounds like that could be a part of it. But talk to me about company growth, possibly revenue predictability, find making sure you're having conversations with the right clients, all those things that lead to the growth of the company that consequentially get to the impact that we want.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's you can't build a company on just happiness or or love, right? There's real work and there's always challenges. It's not the challenges. It's how you address those challenges across the board. If you believe it or not, we don't. DocPanel doesn't have a sales team. We have a chief business development officer, but we don't really have a sales team, and that's because if you do the right things in the industry, you kind of build a reputation and then, people recommend you. So the reason why we have 26 academic medical centers that choose to partner with us is because it's still a small community and one chair recommends to the other chair that, hey, these guys are really real. They're doing a good job. And then, you go into the next university, next
Sure,
hospital.
sure. Is all of
Um,
your guys' business coming from word of mouth and referrals?
Pretty much. We get our radiologists, from radiologists that are happy with us and are working with us already, and they tell their friends that, hey, you should look at, come to DocPanel because it's really a different experience. So they're our biggest fans and they're our biggest referrals, as far as getting additional clinicians.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a lot of the clients, which are the hospitals and the academic medical centers, are coming from word of mouth because again, it's a small community, and if when you differentiate yourself that you're actually delivering what you promised to deliver in the industry and just keeping your word, it does get around. And unfortunately, in the industry, those are some of the challenges that many companies have.
Mm-hmm.
They overpromise and underdeliver. We
Yeah.
we like to underpromise and
Promise to
overdeliver.
deliver. Yeah.
So it's just a better experience.
Yeah. And it's interesting. If I can cut you off here just very quickly, it's very interesting to hear because that's side of things where if you do such a really great job that people love you, they'll tell more people about it. It's like the dream of every company, right? At the same time, when people tell me that, I hear from them also saying, "Hey, that is awesome, but we know that list also has a limit to it sometimes as well." Because as you start getting more and more and more, people start it can start to broaden up a little bit, and then once that is exhausted, then that becomes an obstacle for the company. Do you guys find that to be something that you've run into, or at least see for the future, or are cautious around it for yourselves as well?
I mean, it's not yet. Put it like that. I mean, the shortage of radiologists is a real thing, and it's impacting everyone, um, across the board. And though we are blessed with many clients, there are still many other, institutions across the country that probably don't even know about us yet. So, we cover the entire U.S. Um, and we also have a second opinion product that's global product. For where patients can directly, upload their studies and get a second opinion. Um, that product, we're so busy on the primary care and working with large institutions in the U.S. We've spent very little time on our second opinion. So there's a lot of growth potential across the board. But
Mm-hmm.
everything's limited by some resource along the way. You just have to stay ahead of it.
Yeah, 100%. If I can ask, I think there's a question that I would love to get your thoughts on, and it's a question that I've asked almost every single client on the every single guest on the podcast here, and it's really been something that I think allows the ceiling of thinking to just be opened up, and you can just think however you like. And you've probably heard the question before, but I'll ask it anyways. If you had a magic wand and you could wave this amazing phenomenal wand to solve one challenge within the company. And I know there's probably a million priorities we have to take over and focus on. But when looking at the growth, the revenue, the clients coming through, more radiologists for you guys, if you could just solve just one thing that's in your control internally that would fix those problems, what would it be? And I know it's not one thing, but for this question, it is.
It's something that we continue to focus on. We're very much a hands-on human type of company. So with all the we talk about AI, and with all the AI, and AI is here to stay, and we are definitely focusing on it like everyone else should be, because it's real and it's impact every industry, not just healthcare, across the board. Um, we also focus on the human touch, and we're using AI and technology to free up our people so they can have more real conversations, both with our radiologist and both with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, if I have more people and free up our people to spend 90% of their time, talking and just being real. Just radiologist
Yeah,
or somebody's
authentic.
working at home and is plowing through 150 cases a day. They appreciate when somebody calls them up and says, "How you feeling today? And how you're
Mm-hmm.
doing?
Mm-hmm.
And can I help you? And do you need anything?" As opposed to just dealing with automation, entirely. And believe it or not, even in the hospital setting, um, that you know. Technologist or that nurse or that radiologist or that referring provider that's sitting on the other end waiting for a result from the radiologist, they like when they talk to a real person, and that connection happens, and they get to know their radiologist, and they get to know us as not just as a company doc panel, but I get to know people by their name,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
build,
It's a huge difference.
build that. And I think that's what's missing across the board. Everyone's trying to run so fast that AI is going to do everything. Yes, it's going to do a lot, but I want to free up our people to do more of the human touch and bring
Yeah.
humanity back into it.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when everybody was, of course, locked down in COVID, and meetings were just like the one we're having right now. Um, as soon as everything opened up again, the first reaction from people is, "I want to see people. I want to talk to people. I want to be close to someone. I want to have that connection." And I think as humans, we have this innate nature within us that is, we always feel appreciation if that happens, which is exactly what you're describing. Sometimes that can go unnoticed, especially for companies that do things online and have, of course, the privilege of doing these things online. But there's still that missing piece that allows them to do the work even better. And of course, at the end of the day, that means more impact for people and everyone that they're helping. So it's really awesome that that you highlighted that. Thank you for highlighting that too. And I have one final question for you here, Moni. Um, It's actually also not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had absolutely no idea who you were. So here's the question. Sometimes it's really fitting, sometimes it's not fitting at all. And I'm afraid this one might not be too fitting, but I will ask it anyways because it's tradition. So here it is. You ready for it?
Sure.
So here's the question. How do you find the balance between organic growth and trying to pour a lot of money into digital marketing? Where do you spend most of your efforts and focus on?
Yeah, I think we we did discuss that. It's organic. We spent a lot of time on organic growth. We spend very little. I mean, there's some Google AdWords out there. Mostly for our other product, which is direct to patient. That's how patients find us online.
Mm-hmm.
But having worked in large institutions, that's not how large institutions do business. They don't go online and Google someplace and say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna outsource or we're going to partner with a company to do, deep clinical interpretation." That's not the way it works. It all happens, from word of mouth and then from lots of discussions. And so we don't spend a lot on marketing at all across the
Mm-hmm.
board. Um,
Interesting. And is that, and if I can add an additional question, that's a redundant statement there, but give you an additional question on that. Is it because you don't believe that anything in digital, and of course, just please be very transparent with your answer here, the digital side of things wouldn't allow that, I'll call it a conversation initiation, to be valuable for a possible client, a hospital system, whatever it might be? Or you think that the other side, because it fused the business so well, there's no need to shift that focus?
I mean, I think you need the tools for the specific task, right? It's a specialty tool, So again, I think, if we're focusing for our patients and if we want to, kind of do global outreach and say, hey, DocPanel does these secondary, second opinion reads for patients, I think digital tools could be very popular, reaching out and getting to each patient, out there, making us aware. But hospitals and academic medical centers, still do things, I would say, in a much more, old fashioned way. Um,
Historical, some might say.
some might say, and some of it is true. It's that way. Things happen in a very different manner. I mean, the Radiology Society of North America, which is probably one of the biggest medical conferences in the world, just happened right after Thanksgiving in Chicago. It brings together 60,000 people from across the globe, many from the U.S. Every major vendor that builds things for radiology is kind of at that conference in Chicago. A lot of business happens there, right? That's where people, that's where, administrators go and they buy equipment and they buy software and they buy, technology for their departments. It really happens like that. It happens in those type of conferences. Um, as opposed to, going online or shopping in that fashion when you're buying multi-million dollar pieces of equipment. Doesn't really happen online. You can do some of the research online, but you're not really going to just say ad popped up and I'm going to go
Yeah.
buy this
Has to
particular.
be a trustworthy, like something that builds trust. I get it. Totally get it. 100%. Well, Moni, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an incredible, great, and insightful conversation. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you? And of course, also a little bit more about DocPanel?
Yeah, docpanel.com. We're online.
Amazing. I will leave as many links as I can down below here. And if you enjoyed listening to this conversation up until now, please hit the subscribe button and I'll see you on the next episode. Moni, thanks again for your time.
Thank you.